Hello, hello, guys. Come on in. I'm going to do my book club number 7 with you and talk about something I posted on Instagram and Facebook earlier today about what it means to live in a fog. So in my book, A Radical Awakening, which I don't have with me right now, I talk about how most of the time we go through life not even knowing that we're living in a fog-like experience. And what I mean by that is we feel disconnected, we feel apathetic, we feel restless or exhausted, and we think that that is just the way things are. When in fact, it's not. It's not the way things are. The reason we're disconnected or apathetic or disenfranchised is because we are in a fog. We have fogged up our minds. We fogged up our connection with our inner beings. And because of this fog, we are just going through the motions, not realizing that something is amiss. We think this is the way things just are. This is the way we just are. You as a human here are not meant to be chronically exhausted, chronically fatigued, in a relationship where you argue all the time, constantly dissatisfied, feeling disrespected. That is not what this life is about. So if you are in that foggy state of a relationship or passion or purpose, you're feeling really disconnected, it's because you believe that that is supposed to be your reality. So in my book, I speak to this phenomenon that especially we women go through, where as children, we're raised to believe that we should put others before us and that we should be quiet and not speak our mind and not use our voice. So because of this chronic disenfranchisement, we now grow up as adults and we are clueless to our inner empowerment, our inner joy, our inner sovereign power. So this fog state is our reality since childhood, especially as little girls. But it's not meant to be our reality. It's not meant to be our reality. So as women, we just grow up with this severance to the inner self and believe that this is reality. It isn't. It is a fog-like state that women especially live in because that's how we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned early on to be unknown strangers to ourselves. We've been disconnected from ourselves to such a degree that this is our conditioning. When I woke up to the fact that I was living in a fog, not because of me necessarily, but because this is how culture trains us women and how I had been trained since I was a child, I then was able to get out of the fog. But for a long time, I thought this is the way my reality is going to be. I didn't realize this fog-like state, this apathy, this disconnection, this fear, this hesitancy, this confusion was because of the way I was conditioned. So that's what I write about in this book, A Radical Awakening. The awakening is to realize that this fog-like state, especially for women, is targeted to create confusion. It's designed to create a loss of self by this toxic patriarchy. This toxic patriarchy sends out emissions into the ether where we breathe, we women, and we take in this confusion. We take in this disempowerment. We believe we need to be prettier than we are, better than we are, skinnier than we are, more perfect than we are. This is the state of the fog. This is what we breathe. These are the fumes of the toxic patriarchy that we take in, and then we wonder why are we feeling upset all the time? Why we are angry all the time? Why are we burnt out all the time? Why do we look in the mirror and never feel happy all the time? It's not because you're not beautiful or I'm not beautiful. It's because the patriarchy's emissions, yes, and the second-hand smoke that we're constantly inhaling from the patriarchy's emissions is this fog of confusion, disempowerment, fatigue, burnout, loss of power, loss of self, loss of knowing. And for years we think it's me, it's just me. Everyone seems to have it together, but I don't. And as a therapist, as I began to work with people and women, I began to see, oh my goodness, she's as confused as I am. She's as scared as I am. She's not speaking up just like me. And that's when I understood for myself that this is the fog of this toxic patriarchy within which we women are brainwashed. We're brainwashed, we're trained so meticulously to look in the mirror and fault ourselves. We're trained to go into the workplace and not speak up. We're trained to put our children, our partners, our relatives, our neighbors first. We're trained to do this meticulously and systematically by the emissions of the toxic patriarchy. And if we are good girls, we take in this patriarchy and the fumes into our soul, and our soul disintegrates. So for years we think it's us, it's me, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. Till you wake up to realize, no. Most women, I can't say all because then there'll be one woman who's like beaten the odds, but most women have inhaled the toxic fumes of patriarchy. And that inhalation is what I call living in a fog. So it's not you. If you're out there feeling disgruntled, disenfranchised, disempowered, disinterested, confused, lost, in a blur, wake up to realize that you are in a fog. It's not you. It's this inhalation. Now, yes, you have to exhume it. You have to cleanse yourself of it. You have to get rid of it. But first understand it's not you. It is what we take in. And when you take in this crap, you're going to feel like crap. And then you're going to look like crap and act like crap. And then everything around you is going to feel like crap. And you're going to wonder why only your life feels like that. But it's not just you. This is the system. So the first step of getting out of the fog is to become aware that you're in a fog, right? So how do you become aware? You pay attention to your body. You pay attention to your clenched jaw, to your racing heart, to your constant, things that wanting to come out of your mouth, but you don't let them, to your trepidation, through your avoidance, through your denial. You want to say things, but you don't. You want to speak up at work, but you don't. You want to say something to your partner, but you don't because you're scared. So the first step is to recognize that you are burning out. Yes, that you're tired of taking your kids to 10,000 activities. You're tired of having to do it all, hold it all on your shoulders. Whatever it is you're feeling, the first step is to honor it. Yes, tight shoulders, clenched fists, clenched jaws, sleepless nights, overeating, using substances. So the first step is to wake up to go, okay, this is out of sync, this is out of alignment, this is out of alignment. What's going on? But the first step is to pay attention to what is going on before we figure out why. And then honor. Is it possible that I've been living for decades completely clueless to my inner truth? Have I constructed a whole life based on these fumes of servility, of disempowerment, of confusion, of lostness? Is my entire life created out of this great big sense of lack? Right? And then you begin to see, oh my goodness, because I've been inhaling these fumes of not good enoughness, that I'm not supposed to be first in my life, that I'm supposed to be feeling this way, thinking that this is the way I'm supposed to feel, then now I've created this whole reality. So becoming aware is so important, but it's so scary because you're waking up out of the fog, right? Part of the fog is to be oblivious to the fog, right? In the fog, you can't see anything. So the toxic patriarchy trains us to not be able to see, to not wake up to see the truth. It keeps us buried. That's why I call it a fog. So now when you begin to wake up and see through what's on the other side of the fog, what's been hiding behind, it's not very pleasant, because what you had kept in denial is now coming into awareness. So it's a rude awakening at first. The more the fog, the greater the rudeness, greater the shock. So you become aware, that's the first step. And then you go through this death of like, where have I been living? How did I not see behind the fog? How did I miss all this? Well, you missed it because you were in a fog. You were akin to being in an opioid den, intoxicated, unaware, living robotically, day after day, decade after decade, not aware that there were real realities behind the fog that you were missing because of this lostness. You know, I often tell women that they don't get lost in relationships, but they enter lost. And it's because we're not in touch with this lostness, the relationship then becomes a mirror and a petri dish for exponential loss. And then you think it's the relationship. But if you look back on every relationship that ultimately disintegrated, you entered lost. You entered in lack. And that's why the relationship unraveled. So in the same way, our entire life, all the choices we've made in the fog are based on lack, are based on denial, are based on not being able to see reality clearly. So the first step is to become aware through your body, through your relationships, through your banging into so many realities and not being able to see what it is. That's living in a fog. And then, so Denny says, I lived in lies for 27 years until I became aware, until I learned all before me was a big lie. Because my parents taught me not to speak the truth. So the first step is awareness, then is the shock. Then you have to die. What does that mean? I always speak of death. The third step is you have to leave the matrix. You have to leave the fog, right? You have to leave the opioid den. You've been intoxicated on drugs, but now you have to wake up. So the first step of waking up is you have to leave. You must leave, right? So you have to take a big risk and leave that fog-like state behind. So you have to walk out of the cave. What does that mean? Leaving the matrix means shedding all that came with the fog. So sometimes that means leaving behind relationships or leaving behind who you were in the relationship. That is where the death of the old self occurs. So I always say, in order to change, you can complain all your life. But in order to transform, you need to die onto your old self. So something in the old life has to die. Either your relationship or your relationship to your old self. Either in the form or the formless. And that takes a great amount of letting go, releasing, shedding, and healing, right? And this stage takes often years because you are so attached to who you were that now you need to learn a whole new way and you don't know a new way. So this is where, you know, reading books like mine, but other self-growth books, taking courses, really working on your inner growth with a coach or a teacher, this is where the pivot happens. But nothing can happen without first being aware if you are in a fog. So previously on Instagram and Facebook, I asked people to describe what their fog-like state looks like. But for this book club, I would like us to read this section in the book, A Radical Awakening, if you haven't bought it already. I don't have it with me right now. And drop a comment below. How does my fog-like state show up? does it show up in alcoholism, in overeating, in exhaustion, in stress, in yelling at my kids, putting on weight, not going after my dream job? How does my fog-like inner disconnection show up in my life? So drop a comment and I'm going to follow it up in the next book club. I'd love to hear from you because the first step is becoming aware. So I'd like to see if you're aware, how does my fog-like state show up in my life? So I'd love to hear from you so we can keep the discussion going. Inner work is never easy. It takes a true reckoning of yourself in the mirror, barefaced, naked, vulnerable, but it is only through a real detailed audit of our internal and external worlds that we can create transformation. So that's what I hope these mini talks, which I call book clubs, help spur in you so that you can begin to ask questions like, why is this happening in my life? Why is this keeping on happening in my life? What is my fog-like state? What is my pattern? So in my book, A Radical Awakening, I talk about this. To give words to your inner experience is so important so you can pay attention to the patterns. If we don't even know that we're in a fog, how can we get out of the fog? So I'm here for the next few book clubs to really talk about the power of awareness, waking up to your dysfunction. Before we heal the dysfunction, we need to wake up to it. So drop a comment below. How does my fog-like state create itself in my life, show up in my life? Just an awareness of how it does. I would love to hear from you guys, and I will see you for the next book club. When I see you, thank you for joining me. We were talking about a section in my book, A Radical Awakening. Grab it if you haven't already. Thank you all for listening. My fog-like state shows up when I'm yelling. Beautiful. I have a big fog. Kitmar says, my fog happens when when I'm dead bone tired, exhaustion. Beautiful. Keep dropping it. And I'm going to pick up on these comments in the next book club. Thank you for joining me, guys.